Austin, my favorite question. I mean, now that I'm in franchising, it's my favorite question. I didn't think I would be in franchising, but here I am. My favorite question is, how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise backstory?
So I was barely out of college when I got involved, and actually, full disclosure, my uncle, my mom's youngest brother, is the founder of Sola Salons, who still lives in Boulder. Really close with him, and right out of college, I started working at Enterprise Rent a Car out in West LA, which was a grind, but you learned a lot. And about a year and a half in, I realized I didn't want to make that a long-term thing, so I hit up my uncle, who, like I said, I was close with, and said, "What's up with this Sola thing?" Because I just liked it because there's this cross between real estate and the creative world.
Mm-hmm.
I was interested in both in college. I took real estate classes, got into some creative advertising, never beauty industry stuff, but I liked the fact that it was a cross between real estate and a creative industry. And at the time there was like 5 Solas open, or 6, maybe 6. And then, we looked in Santa Barbara, because I was living in LA at the time. LA was just too big of a market. Looked in Santa Barbara, then a lot of friends down in San Diego. So we started poking around there and found our first spot in La Jolla. Great little neighborhood there. And opened our first one, which is about, I think, the 8th or 9th total. We were the 3rd or 4th franchisee group. Because when they originally started this, it was just they had made a bunch of money in a different company that they had taken, a real estate investment trust that they had taken public, and my uncle and his partner, made some really good money off of that. And then from there, started doing this as a little side project in Denver, Boulder area, and they planned on just keeping it local, regional, but then they decided to start franchising it.
All right, so a lot that I want to unpack from there. First, you're in college, your uncle's doing this thing, and your uncle's already successful in business. Like, is it clicking that he's got something big at the time? Even when you're looking at it in the early stages, I mean, Sola is a nationwide brand now, but Are you gripping what he has, or like, if you could take your brain back to that spot, what are you looking at?
That's a good question. I'd say I did to a certain extent. Not that it has become, I thought maybe there'd be a couple hundred in the country total. We had opened 5 in San Diego or something like that. So I realized that this industry, I'm just such a big fan of disruptor type businesses, but also creating a business that solves a problem that people didn't know they had. And I think that was this. And especially in the western half of the country, most hairdressers operate independently, want to be independent versus a W-2 employee, which is a little more common in the East Coast and kind of Midwest, but, call it Colorado West, not all, but the majority of beauty professionals want to be independent. So I was, living in Boulder for years, which is very much of a West Coast mentality, then moved to LA and then San Diego, and, realized that, there's a lot of, and I dug into the industry and realized that most hairdressers, rent a chair, and it causes a lot of drama because it's basically, they're independent hairdressers, but the salon owners need to treat them like employees to keep, the salon running appropriately and efficiently. And then that just causes this conflict. And then it causes a lot of issues from there. And this really solved that problem. And so I started digging in from there.
How did you go about financing it? Obviously, you have connections, I'm sure, but like, how did you go through that process?
Yeah, no, we had to scrap. I partnered up with my father, who put in some money. Then we went to friends and family and asked to invest in the first one, because these things are pretty expensive to build. They're not employee heavy as you operate them, which is very much a plus, but a big barrier to entry is just how much they cost to build out originally. So we needed to get some funds, and my father put in a little bit, and then, or more than a little bit, but we still needed 60 or 70%. And then so we went to friends and family and put together a whole business plan, and started reaching out to people.
At that point in your life, because you are a younger businessman at that point.
Mhm.
Does that end up working in your advantage? Because I mean, you're talking about large sums of money, but like, does the brain understand how much risk you're actually putting into
I
this
don't think
thing?
it did. No.
Yeah.
Then it didn't. It does now, but
Right.
it definitely does now. But at the time, I mean, I didn't own anything then, right? So, a lot of that was my father too. It's kind of having what he says the parental oversight. Because I think if me as a 25-year-old going to ask for hundreds of thousands of dollars, wouldn't have gone well. So, the fact that he was putting in money and I was going to be a full time. A big part of that too is I even though owning a few solas is not a full time job. I was going to go at it as a full time job to really give it the attention and care that it needed. So, but yeah, at the time I had no idea. It's sort of whatever it takes to get it open. I was willing to do. But in the early days, we did have, Sola was approved by the SBA to get SBA loans. So I think we got if I remember correctly, a small SBA loan. But later on, the SBA kicked our concept off the registry because they look at us as landlords, not employers. And they're, SBA is all about, funding businesses that creates jobs. And we are creating entrepreneurs, not jobs. But to them, that wasn't important. So we got not just Sola, but all our competitors are no longer, approved for SBA loans. So in the early days, we got an SBA loan, and the application was probably thicker than a Bible, So, we had to do to get a small SBA loan, but then kind of rolled with it from there.
I use this line a lot that if I'm buying a franchise, I'm betting on the jockey, not on the horse.
Yeah.
I mean, that your uncle has success in this category, and it's not. I would imagine it's not like you grew up saying, "I want to be in this industry." Like, it's not what your passion was. Is that ultimately what you and your dad are betting on? You're like, we know that you're saying my uncle has success. Why not? Because you're still a pioneer in the brand. Like, are you betting on the jockey?
Yeah, I mean, I think the jockey is a big part of it. Not a big part of it. I mean, the majority of it. Obviously, our concept makes a lot of sense. We're the first ones to do it nationally. But if your local operators and managers and owners aren't, riding that horse, you could have the biggest, baddest horse in the stable. But if you're, if you don't know how to ride it, then it's not going to win. And so that's a big deal. And that's one thing too, that I think my uncle Stratton Smith and his partner, Matt Brigger, brought on a bunch of really good jockeys, really good franchisees to operate these things in the early days, and not just good business people, sophisticated business people, but also cool people. People like to have a good time, like to have fun, for 15 years. We're actually going back now. We took a hiatus for a few years, but we're going back next year. But our conference every year is in Cancun, and it's a party. It's fun. You learn a lot, you do a lot of networking, you come home fired up on Sola, but you have a great time. And I think that community that he built, was so important.
How big is the portfolio now?
For us or for nationally?
For you.
We are going to be signing a lease on our 21st location.
How crazy is that?
No, it is crazy. And I actually brought in a lot of my good college friends that, so I have, so good college buddies of mine, have the Fresno, I mean, this is various groups, but Temecula market, LA market, Detroit market, Fresno, El Paso. So I brought in a lot of these buddies, and sometimes we're hanging out, having a beer or something. Be like, isn't it funny that we're all in the salon business? We're like, we love it. It's and we're not in the, operating a salon. We're kind of in the property management, leasing side of this industry. It's a little more real estate, but, probably half and half real estate and beauty industry. But, we all just get a laugh out of the fact that we're all in this business, and it's all ultimately goes back to, my uncle Stratton, who a lot of my friends from college knew him because he lived really 4 blocks away from where we lived back then.
21. Is that mentally trippy for you? Like, do you think about how big the operation I mean, it's simpler operations, but does it trip you up at all? Like, look at what
Yeah.
we built. Yeah.
Yeah, it hits me sometimes, but not not an average day, but every once in a while it kind of hits me. So we have 800 beauty professionals, and I mean, we have one location we just built earlier this year that has 78 studios in it, and some of them are doubles and triples. So there's like 90 people that work at one
Crazy.
location. So that's one thing we've kind of pioneered out here is doing bigger locations, which has been generally successful for us. There's economies of scale when you build them and various other reasons. And just being in Southern California, there's that beauty industry demand is always there, compared to maybe some other parts of the country. So we've been comfortable going bigger, but yeah, so we have 800 people, and sometimes it kind of trips me out for sure. Kind of, will hit me like, holy shit, and it'll be a lot of times when somebody asks me, otherwise I don't think about it all the time. But
you brought them to like Tampa Bay, you could fill the whole stadium with how many fans go to one of their games. So like, that's crazy. Like that's the size of your operation. It's crazy.
Totally. Yeah.
So do you keep scaling? Do you think about, does the word exit mean anything to you yet?
No, as far as exit, I'm, obviously in the franchising world, I'd say, I've met a lot of people. I've been involved in the IFA and the multi-unit franchising deal. My wife and I won an award a while back for the multi-unit franchising conference. But so I've got involved, but then, after getting involved and meeting some really smart, cool, interesting people, I realized, I'm a Sola person first, a franchisee second. There's a lot of people out there that are franchisees first, and then they pick the brand they want to get involved with. But, I just love it so much. The exit thing is not on the radar. Obviously, you plan for, so like I said, I'm partners with my father. He's not getting any younger, what happens when he passes away and, stuff like that. But, there, and a lot of these conferences have, because what I've also learned is a lot of families do this together, sons, fathers, brothers, that sort of thing. And they have these kind of family business planning, outbreak or, sessions that you can go to. But the exit part is I just love doing this too much. And we got more salons to build. And, I'm just looking to move forward at this point, so I love what,
I mean, you've been through a lot with the brand. I mean, obviously if you laid unit 1 to unit 21 and looked at the story behind it, like build out costs have gone up, real estate has gone up, labor challenges, all these other challenges. But I mean, I'm sure you could look back on day one, like you're trying to get funding, like it's a different type of challenge. At some point, you almost have to like look past it and just say, yes, the business climate is a little bit different today, but we have a plan. We're just going to keep developing these, right?
We roll with the punches. And we did have a couple open when the real estate / economy bubble burst in 08, 09, 10, and there we had a couple open there, and that was dicey. So we've gone through that. We've gone through a period of almost no inflation, and now it's kind of gone into hyperinflation. Construction costs have obviously gone up. It really affects us. We actually have a business partner who we work closely with, who's another good college friend of mine that actually, gets really involved in the construction of it. So we actually have gotten pretty creative on how to save some upfront costs, rather than hiring a GC that you just say, all right, here's the plans, go build it. You're going to spend a lot more money. And so we've had to get creative and roll with the punches. And then, we take out loans to build these, and the interest rates are a lot higher. Construction costs are higher. And it's just it's a different deal than it was before, but you got to adjust and kind of roll with the punches, but we kind of put on our blinders and just keep moving forward.
I'm going way back to your opening statement, but did you keep the job at twofold? Did you keep the job at Enterprise? And my perception of working at Enterprise whether you're there for 1 minute or you're there for 5 years, there is a tremendous value in the infrastructure that it gives you from customer service and operations. Like, are you able to look back at that time and say, like, you know, it was actually very valuable to where I was going?
It was very valuable. Yeah, I joke about working there, but it really teaches you how to run a business and kind of be entrepreneurial minded with the systems needed to be in place. You know, the accounting, the bookkeeping, management, all that need to be in place, and the customer service, which is a huge thing. The sales part is big at enterprise, but with us, it doesn't feel like sales at all. If somebody's not ready for a studio, you're not going to sell them into it. Right. Because it's not going to, you're looking at establishing relationships, not selling them a rental car and the insurance, and then they go on their way, assuming their credit card works, so it's a different approach. But what I did learn a lot from is the customer service and taking care of your people and appreciating your clients and your customers. And that's the approach we take, is that our hairdressers and estheticians, and now a lot of Botox filler nurses, and every beauty industry segment, we treat them like clients, not like tenants. And answer your original question is, I did quit enterprise to get into this, which ended up taking a lot longer than expected. So it was a period of limbo there. So I did not stay at enterprise while starting this, but you could, but it'd be, back now you could. But back then, there was so much uncertainty, and there was just such young of a company and a concept that there's a lot to figure out that took a lot more time and effort.
I have one perception question to close us out, because you brought it, like, you've been a part of the multi-unit conference, IFA, et cetera. I think about what you said. You said, I'm Sola first, then a franchisee. And so I think about, like, all the brands that go to this conference hoping to say, hey, awesome, let me convince you to come buy our brand. And yeah. I look around that room and I'm like, I think it's actually really hard to do that, because once you figure out what your cost to get in, your pathway to profitability is, and you still have room to grow, like, why would you take that risk into another brand when you still have this turn? So when you're walking that floor, obviously every brand in there wants you to come say, ooh, I would love to buy your frozen yogurt brand. It's not, I would imagine it's not going to happen, or it's going to be very tough to do that until you run out of bandwidth.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I have, when I got involved a little bit with IFA and the multi-unit franchising, organization, I really started to kind of think about it, and I realized just how much I like Sola, and to get into a whole nother concept. And it seems like we have a great market with room to grow, to all sorts of possibilities, and green pastures ahead of us. It's different now. There's more competition. There's, harder to find real estate. Like was talked about, construction costs, real estate, interest rates, all that has gotten more difficult. But we're really good at what we do. Obviously, I'm biased, but so we just want to focus on what we do. And maybe at some point it'll lead to something else. But I have realizing how not difficult, but just how, you're starting from scratch again. Now, not completely from scratch, because you're part of a franchise that supports you, but that's why I love the franchising world. But I just, realized that a whole new undertaking would be crazy. And that's why the people I've met through those organizations, I have so much respect for, because to do one thing and then all of a sudden get into a whole different concept, a whole different business, is quite the undertaking for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, man, I love your story. You fell into franchising young. You did it with your family. You continue to scale. Great outlook. I'm grateful that you shared some of your story with me today. This is awesome. And kudos to you. Awesome stuff.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. And I definitely, give a big shout out to our team. We have a small but mighty team of, 6, 6 of our employees. We have other contractors we work with that take care of facility and, kind of general contractor and stuff like that. But we just have such a good crew. And I found that was the key. You take care of your people, you have fun with them. We took them to the Padres game last week. You take them to Cancun for the conference, and stay an extra day and, have fun at the pool, whatever. And, I just think having the right crew and taking care of that team is the biggest key for sure. And it's not easy,
I agree. Well, and look on the reverse, all your college buddies, you took care of them too. You got them introduced to great business opportunity. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. For Austin, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Z.